There is a truth about relationships that few men truly understand, and those who grasp it completely change the way they see things. This truth, I am going to show it to you through a simple story, but what it reveals about you, about women, and about masculine power goes far beyond what you imagine. Stay until the end, because the most important part comes right where most people stop reading. Men, on the other hand, can only enter from the age of 30 or 35, not before, no exceptions. Imagine a candy store where men and women are allowed to enter, but not at the same time. Women can enter from the age of 18, walk around freely, taste all the candy they want, with no time limit. Between 18 for women and 30 for men, there is a gap. A decade of difference, sometimes more. During all that time, women are already inside the store tasting, exploring, testing, comparing. And men are outside, their faces pressed against the glass, fantasizing about what they have not yet touched. Inside the store, some women test as many candies as possible, every variety, every texture. Others will be more selective. They taste 2 or 3 candies and quickly understand which flavor suits them. What matters is that they have the time and the freedom to confirm their preferences. 10 years or more accumulating sensory memory, comparisons, reference points. And then one day, the doors finally open for men. Those who are 30, 32, 35 years old can finally enter. For them, it is a sensory explosion. Some men barely through the door rush in every direction. They grab a bowl, go from stand to stand, picking up a little of everything. Others move more slowly to gradually understand what they truly enjoy. And then there are those who taste 2 or 3 flavors and immediately feel they have found what suits them. It is at that moment that something strange happens. Some women start to get angry, not all of them, but especially those who had tasted almost every candy in the store. They criticize these men for testing too many things, for not settling down, for not choosing a single flavor. Paradoxically, it is sometimes those who explored the store the most who now show themselves to be the most critical toward the men who are beginning their own exploration. If this reflection speaks to you and you want to go further in understanding yourself and relationships, subscribe now to this channel and activate the bell. Every new video is one more piece in building your mastery. To understand what this story is really saying, you have to step outside the candy store image without losing sight of it. The store is the market of seduction and relationships. The candies are the people, the relational options, the possibilities of a couple, flirting, adventure, building something. And the entry rule, this timing asymmetry, is not a law written by anyone. It is a way of illustrating the nature of the social and biological game. In real life, from adolescence, a young woman begins to attract the attention of different men. From 16, 17, 18 years old, she is already symbolically inside the store. She has options, sometimes many, not because she worked 10 years to build them, but because her youth and her femininity are desired by most men. Meanwhile, the young man of the same age is mostly outside. He has no perceived value in this market yet. He wants to enter the store, but nature imposes a delay on him. This delay is the years during which he must build a skill, a career, a body, a character. On average, it is only around 30 that his value begins to become attractive in the eyes of others. This timing difference creates a deep asymmetry. It explains why at 25, many men feel invisible, while many women feel at the center of attention. It also explains why at 35, the dynamic often reverses. Some men have choice, a form of selective power, while some women are now looking to settle down in a stable way. It is neither good nor bad. It is a description of a mechanism. Women have had a decade, sometimes more, to test, make mistakes, come back, choose. At 28, 30 years old, many of them have real knowledge about what suits them or not. They know what type of personality exhausts them, what behavior is a warning sign. Men who have just entered do not have this experience at the same level. While they were struggling to build themselves, many had neither the time nor the energy to live the same number of stories. So when they finally enter, they find themselves like those men who fill their bowl with every candy possible. Not out of vice, but out of naivety, raw curiosity, a desire to fill a void that has lasted for years. This is where the real question arises. Why can men not be satisfied with just one candy? The temptation is to answer only on the moral level by saying they are immature or lack seriousness. But the candy store story forces us to look more deeply. The man often reaches his peak of options later than the woman, and at the moment he finally discovers this power of choice, she has already lived through that cycle of exploration and tends to want stability. This gap creates deep misunderstandings. The man has just entered and discovers he can choose. He finally has a certain value in this market. For the first time, he is no longer in the position of the emotional beggar hoping to be chosen. He becomes an actor who can say yes or no, who can decide who he wants to commit to and on what terms. This shift is at the heart of masculine value in relationships. It is not a value given at birth, but a value that is built. The price of this value is the years of work, solitude, doubt, discipline. The reward is the power of choice. But this power, when misunderstood, can transform into scattering and loss of direction. He can get lost in the new abundance, letting himself be guided only by his impulses, his ego. He thinks he is enjoying himself when in reality he is consuming his time, his mental energy, sometimes his psychological health. True masculine mastery does not consist of tasting the entire store, but of exploring it with strategy and full awareness. When the store opens, there is the ego that wants to make up for lost time, that wants to prove to the 18-year-old boy left outside that he has finally gotten his revenge. There is the fear of missing out and the gaze of other men, social validation, implicit competition. All of this forms an emotional whirlwind. If he is not careful, the man will be driven by this whirlwind instead of driving his own trajectory. Yet nothing forces a man to taste 100 candies to understand what he wants. The man can and must compensate through observation, reflection, and understanding of himself. Even before entering the store, he can already decide which behaviors are incompatible with his values, learn from the mistakes of others, understand that having choice does not mean consuming everything. This is where his true power of selection appears. Inside the store, all the candies seem attractive at first glance. But you, as a man, know that not everything that shines is compatible with your life, your project, your mindset. Some flavors are exciting at first, but destructive in the long run. Others seem understated but nourish over time. Masculine value in relationships is measured by the ability to firmly hold your inner frame, even in the face of abundance. Not rushing simply because someone finally wants you, but asking yourself, is this choice aligned with the man I want to be in 10 years? Masculine emotional mastery is the ability to say, yes, I have choice, but this choice does not control me. I can refuse opportunities that flatter my ego, but destroy my peace. This also means understanding the position of women in this store without attacking them. When a woman sees a 32-year-old man who starts to multiply stories, she often sees what she lived through at 20. Recognizing this perception does not mean you have to submit to it. It means you understand the game in its entirety, without bitterness, without victimization. Your responsibility is not to rewrite the rules of nature, but to play intelligently with them. You cannot change the fact that your value peak often comes later. However, you can decide what you will do with the moment you finally enter the store. You can choose to get lost in novelty or to use it as a phase of clarification and construction. Instead of telling yourself I was deprived for too long, you can tell yourself, I waited a long time, so every choice I make now must be consistent with what I have built. Rather than entering with the fear of missing out, enter with the awareness of your value. You do not need to prove your masculinity by accumulating conquests. The goal for a man is not to accumulate experiences for prestige. The goal is to gain clarity. If you have enough self-awareness, you will not need to test everything. You will know how to recognize what truly resonates with you. But to be able to do that, you have to accept a truth that is often overlooked. Not everyone has the same strategy or the same past. Some men spent their 20s educating themselves internally, working on their traumas, understanding their psychology. Others spent those years chasing external validation. What makes the difference is the invisible work done before entering. Use the waiting period not to envy those already inside, but to build the inner solidity needed to not be swallowed up by the store when the time comes. Masculine value is not only economic or physical, it is also mental. Your ability to stay stable in the middle of strong emotions, drama, tests, projections, that is your true armor. The candy store story is not an excuse to betray, lie, or run from commitments. It is structural explanation. Often, at the moment she wants stability, he is only just discovering the power of choice. If he has not worked on his emotional mastery, he will be tempted to consume this power without limit. But if he has understood the dynamic and prepared himself mentally, he can transform this same power into discernment. He can say, yes, I have options, but I choose depth over quantity. You enter, you observe, you choose with firmness, not out of resignation, but out of decision. You know that the majority of masculine regrets at 40 or 50 do not come from a lack of experience, but from a lack of coherent choices aligned with their true nature. The store remains the same for everyone. Women enter early, explore early, settle down later. Men enter later, discover later, but potentially have more control if they accept to exercise it. You cannot negotiate the moment the door opens for you. But from the moment it is open, everything rests on the way you walk through the aisles. You can walk like an overexcited teenager, or like a man who knows what he went through to get there, and who respects his own journey enough not to give it away cheaply. The value of a man in relationships is not to dominate or to submit. It is to know himself, to read beyond the packaging, to hold his frame without scorning that of others. It is to transform a late access into a strategic advantage rather than chronic frustration. You waited to enter. Make sure that weight shows in the quality of your decisions. That is where your true power of choice lies. That is where your emotional mastery begins. And that is where, in the middle of all those candies, you can, if you truly decide to, recognize the flavor that soothes you, nourishes you, and with which you can finally build something solid and lasting.